The golden sun had barely risen over the city of Accra when the sound of angry voices echoed through the grand white mansion of the Mensah family. From the upstairs balcony, servants stood still, afraid to intervene. Inside the luxurious sitting room, Mr. Mensah, a tall, proud man in a crisp white kaftan, paced furiously across the marble floor. His voice was sharp enough to cut through glass. "Amma, do you realize the disgrace you've brought upon this family?" His daughter Amma, trembling but composed, stood before him with tears glistening in her eyes. She was dressed simply, her hands clutching a small travel bag. Her body language revealed both fear and quiet strength. "Papa, I didn't mean to shame you," she whispered. "Kojo loves me. He wants to marry me. He just needs time to save." Her father's hand slammed on the table. "Save? Save what? He's a mechanic. A man covered in oil every day. Do you want to destroy everything I've built because of love?" Amma's heart pounded. For a moment, she thought of her late mother, who had always been her father's calming voice. Without her, the mansion felt like a palace of ice. "Papa, please," she pleaded. "I can work too. I don't need your money. Just your blessing." Mr. Mensah glared at her. "You are no longer my daughter if you choose this path. Get out of my house before I forget you are my blood." The words struck Amma like thunder. She could hardly breathe. The guards and maids turned away, pretending not to hear. Even Auntie Esi, who had been standing near the doorway, couldn't stop the tears rolling down her face. "Amma, come with me," Auntie Esi said softly. "You'll stay at my place until you figure things out." Amma nodded slowly, her eyes red but her posture unbroken. She turned toward her father one last time. "I may be poor now, Papa," she said, "but I promise you one day you will be proud of me again." Mr. Mensah said nothing. He only turned his back as she walked out the grand door, clutching her small bag. Outside, the mansion's large gate swung open, and Amma stepped into the sunlight, pregnant, abandoned, but not defeated. As she walked down the long driveway, she saw Kojo waiting by his old blue car. When he spotted her, he rushed forward. "Amma, what happened?" She shook her head and forced a smile. "He's done with me, Kojo. But we'll be fine. We have each other." Kojo took her hand gently, his eyes full of guilt and determination. "I'll take care of you and the baby. I promise." The car started with a sputter, and the two drove off toward the outskirts of Accra, where the scent of the sea mixed with dust and dreams. Back at the mansion, Mr. Mensah stood by the window, watching the car disappear. For a brief moment, he felt something heavy in his chest. Regret, maybe, but his pride crushed it before it could grow. He muttered to himself, "She'll come back crying. They always do." But he had no idea that 3 years later, the same daughter he cast away would return to that house, not in tears but in triumph, and with a secret that would shake his entire world. What do you think will happen when Amma returns? Will her father regret his decision? Speech balloon comment below if you believe love can survive even without money. The small neighborhood of Nungwa, on the outskirts of Accra, was nothing like the mansion Amma grew up in. Here, the roads were dusty, children played barefoot, and neighbors greeted one another with warmth and laughter. For Amma, this place, though poor, became a refuge, far from her father's anger and judgment. She and Kojo had rented a small one-room house with faded blue walls and a leaky roof. Kojo's mechanic shop was just a few streets away, where he repaired old taxis and motorbikes. Every morning, the smell of engine oil clung to his hands like a badge of survival. Amma, who had once lived surrounded by maids and luxury, learned to wake up before sunrise to fetch water, cook porridge, and sweep their compound. At first, her soft hands blistered from the chores, but she never complained. She reminded herself, "If this is the price of love, I will pay it." Their love was strong, but life was unkind. Hard days and silent nights. Kojo worked long hours, often returning home late and exhausted. Amma, now visibly pregnant, would wait by the door, smiling through her fatigue. "Kojo, you should rest," she would say softly, handing him a bowl of rice and beans. "Rest?" he would reply with a weary laugh. "If I rest, how will we eat tomorrow?" Money was tight. Sometimes they couldn't afford electricity, and Amma would sit by a kerosene lamp, rubbing her belly and whispering to her unborn child. Don't worry, my little one. Your father and I are doing our best. You will never be ashamed of where you came from. But there were nights when Alma cried quietly, thinking of her father's mansion, its chandeliers, its soft beds, and the father who had turned her away. She missed his voice, even if it was stern. She longed for his embrace, but her pride kept her from writing to him. Still, hope refused to die in her heart. Auntie Esi's visit. One afternoon, while Alma was washing clothes by the roadside, a familiar voice called out, "Alma, my daughter." She turned and saw Auntie Esi walking toward her, holding a small basket of food and fruits. Alma's face lit up with joy. They hugged tightly, tears streaming down both their faces. "Yai, Alma, you have grown so thin," Auntie Esi said. "And your belly, look at you. You'll give birth soon." "Alma similet vikli. Auntie, I'm fine. We're managing." They sat together under a mango tree as Auntie Esi handed her the basket. "Your father still won't listen," she said sadly. "He believes Kojo trapped you for his money." Alma's heart sank. "Does he ever ask about me?" Auntie Esi hesitated, then sighed. "He pretends he doesn't care, but I've seen him look at your old pictures. He keeps them hidden in his study." Alma blinked back tears. "Maybe one day he'll forgive me." "Forgive you?" Auntie Esi shook her head. "He's the one who needs forgiveness." Before leaving, Auntie Esi slipped a few sadies into Alma's palm. "Use this for the baby," she whispered. "And don't give up. God never closes one door without opening another." New life, new struggles. A few weeks later, Alma gave birth to a baby girl at a small community clinic. She named her Ajoa, meaning born on Monday. Kojo held the tiny bundle with trembling hands, his eyes wet with tears. "She looks just like you," he whispered. "Alma similet vikli. Then she will be strong." But happiness was short-lived. Kojo's business began to suffer when his landlord doubled the rent for his workshop. Many of his clients couldn't pay on time, and soon he fell behind on bills. One evening, as rain poured down, Alma found Kojo sitting outside, head in his hands. "Kojo, what's wrong?" "The landlord wants me out," he said bitterly. "We have nowhere to go." Alma felt her heart tighten. "We'll figure it out. I can help. Maybe I can sell things at the market." The next morning, she wrapped baby Ajoa on her back and began selling homemade fruit juice at the roadside. She worked under the hot sun, smiling at passers-by, her hands sticky with sugar and sweat. Every coin she earned felt like gold. Kojo often watched her from afar, guilt heavy on his heart. He knew she deserved more than this struggle, but she never complained. Her courage became his strength. Hope in the storm. One day, as Alma was selling juice, a well-dressed woman approached her stall. "Excuse me, my dear," the woman said kindly. "Did you make this yourself?" "Yes, ma. Fresh pineapple and ginger," Alma replied. It's very good. I have a small cafe nearby. Would you be interested in supplying us daily?" Alma's eyes widened. "Of course, ma. I can do that." The woman smiled. "Come by tomorrow morning. We'll discuss the details." That night, Alma could barely sleep. She turned to Kojo and whispered, "This could be our chance, Kojo. Maybe this is the beginning of something new." Kojo took her hand. "You deserve every blessing coming your way, Alma." A father's shadow. Back in East Legan, Mr. Mensah sat in his grand office, flipping through real estate contracts. But no matter how much money he made, he couldn't shake the loneliness that had settled in his heart. The house felt emptier every year. During family gatherings, people often whispered about Alma. Some said she had died. Others said she was begging on the streets. Mr. Mensah dismissed them all. But at night, when the lights were off, guilt haunted him. He often dreamed of Alma's face that last day, her tears, her courage, her parting words. "You'll be proud of me again." Those words echoed in his mind, and though he'd never admit it, he silently prayed they would come true. A flicker of light. Weeks passed. Alma's juice business flourished. She hired 2 young women to help with deliveries, and her income began to grow. Soon she was able to buy Kojo a few new tools for his workshop. "You see," she said proudly, "we're getting there one day at a time." Kojo smiled, pulling her close. "I told you, Alma, you're the heart of this family." As they stood together, watching little Ajoa play with her toys, a soft breeze carried the scent of mangoes through the air. For the first time in years, Amma felt at peace. But fate wasn't done with her story. Because soon, the very success she had built with her own hands would lead her back, straight into the world of the man who once cast her away. What will happen when Amma's business success crosses paths with her father's company? Speech balloon comment below. Do you think Mr. Mensah will recognize his daughter when fate brings them together again? 3 years had passed since Amma walked away from her father's mansion with nothing but a small travel bag and a heavy heart. In those years, pain had carved her into a woman of strength, and struggle had turned her into a quiet success. Her small roadside juice business, Ajoa Fresh, had grown into a household name in the city. Supermarkets stocked her bottles. Cafes and schools made daily orders. The brand carried her daughter's name, Ajoa, a reminder of the child who had given her purpose when the world turned its back on her. Amma had moved with Kojo and little Ajoa into a modest 2-bedroom apartment in Dansaman. They no longer went to bed hungry. Life was not perfect, but it was peaceful. Until one morning, fate knocked on her door dressed as opportunity. The big contract. Amma sat at her wooden table, going through invoices when her assistant, Efua, rushed in. Madame Amma, you won't believe who just called, Efua said, grinning. Who? The Mensah Estates Company. They want a proposal from Ajoa Fresh to supply their luxury apartments with complimentary fruit drinks for their residents. Amma froze. That name, Mensah Estates. Her heartbeat quickened. Are you sure? She asked softly. Yes, madam. They said they've been hearing about your brand everywhere. Amma's hands trembled. Mensah Estates, her father's company. The same man who kicked her out now unknowingly sought her product. She sat quietly for a moment, her mind torn between fear and pride. Should I go? She asked herself. Of course. Efua said. This is a huge deal. Don't let anyone stop you. Amma smiled faintly. All right. Let's show them who Ajoa Fresh really is. Returning to the mansion. 2 days later, Amma found herself standing outside the tall white gates of Mensah Estates headquarters. The building gleamed like her father's mansion. Clean lines, glass panels, and polished cars lined up outside. For a moment, her knees weakened. Memories rushed back. His voice, his anger, his rejection. But she straightened her shoulders and whispered, I didn't come here to beg. I came as a businesswoman. Inside, the receptionist led her to the top floor. As Amma walked through the elegant hallway, her heels clicked confidently against the marble. Each step a declaration that she was no longer the helpless girl who left crying. In the conference room, 3 executives greeted her. Among them was Mr. Kwabena, her father's deputy director. Miss Amma Owusu, we've heard a lot about your brand, he said warmly. Your products are in demand everywhere. We believe your company can provide the natural and healthy image we want for our new estate in Tima. Amma nodded. Thank you, sir. I can guarantee consistent quality and supply. As they reviewed the proposal, a deep voice interrupted from behind. What's going on here? Everyone turned. The door had opened, and there stood Mr. Mensah himself. Amma's world froze. Her father looked the same, though a little older, a little more tired. His presence still carried that commanding authority. His eyes swept across the room. And then they stopped on her. He blinked, confused, his brows furrowing. Amma, he whispered. The room fell silent. Amma stood, heart pounding. Good afternoon, Mr. Mensah, she said formally. It's been a while. The confrontation. Mr. Mensah stared at her, disbelief flooding his face. You're alive. And you own Ajoa Fresh? Amma smiled politely. Yes, sir. It's my business. For a moment he didn't know what to say. The proud man who once roared like thunder was speechless. His eyes dropped to the document on the table, her company name printed boldly at the top. You've done well, he finally said, his voice soft. I never imagined. Amma held her chin high. You imagined I'd fail. He looked at her, guilt flickering in his eyes. I was angry. I thought I was protecting you from hardship. She smiled bitterly. You threw me into hardship, Papa. But I survived. The other executives looked uncomfortable. Mr. Kwabena cleared his throat. Sir, Perhaps we should continue the meeting later. Mr. Mensah waved his hand. No. Let her stay. Let me see the proposal. Amma continued her presentation calmly, though her hands trembled under the table. Her father listened, asking questions like any other client. Yet in his eyes, a storm was brewing, a mix of pride, regret and love long buried. When she finished, he stood. We'll discuss the terms. Expect my response soon. Amma nodded, collected her files, and turned to leave. But before she reached the door, he said quietly, Amma, please come home for dinner. Just once. She paused. Her chest tightened. I'll think about it, she said and walked out. The dinner invitation. That night, Amma couldn't sleep. Kojo noticed her staring at the ceiling. What's wrong, Amma? He invited me for dinner, she said quietly. Your father? She nodded. I don't know if I'm ready. Kojo took her hand. You don't have to go if it'll hurt you. Amma sikhet. It won't hurt. It will remind me of who I became despite everything. The next evening, she dressed in a royal blue gown, simple but elegant, and tied her hair neatly. She arrived at the mansion gate just as the sun set, casting golden light over the house that had once been her prison and her home. The guard, surprised, opened the gate at once. Madame Amma, Valjome. Inside, she saw her father waiting at the door, dressed in his signature white attire. For a moment, silence hung between them. Then he stepped forward. You look just like your mother, he said softly. And you look older, Amma replied with a faint smile. They sat down to eat, the air thick with unspoken words. Mr. Mensah finally broke the silence. I've been following your company quietly, he admitted. You've done something I never thought possible. Because you never believed in me, Amma said. You're right. I was wrong. I thought wealth would protect you, but it only made me blind. Tears welled up in his eyes. Amma, can you ever forgive me? Amma looked at him, her heart softening. Forgiveness is not something you ask for once. It's something you prove. Mr. Mensah nodded slowly. Then let me start by supporting your business. I want to invest in a Joa Fresh, if you'll allow it. Amma similet ganti. You don't need to buy my forgiveness, Papa. But maybe we can work together, as equals. For the first time in years, they both smiled. Father and daughter, once enemies of pride, now allies of understanding. A new dawn. When Amma left that night, Kojo was waiting in the car. He looked at her curiously. How was it? Peaceful, she said, smiling faintly. For the first time, I saw my father not as the man who threw me out, but as the man who finally saw me. Kojo squeezed her hand. I'm proud of you, Amma. As they drove away, the mansion's lights faded into the distance. The road ahead was uncertain, but Amma felt lighter. She had faced her past and conquered it. Yet deep inside, she knew her story was not over. Her father's world and her own had just begun to intertwine again. And this time, love and business would test them both. Will Amma's partnership with her father bring healing, or heartbreak? Speech balloon comment below if you believe forgiveness can rebuild broken families. Weeks turned into months since Amma reunited with her father. The old wounds between them began to heal. But scars, though faded, still remembered their pain. Her business, Ajoa Fresh, had become even more successful after partnering with Mensah Estates. Her natural fruit juices were now in luxury apartments, hotel minibars and cafes all over Accra. Billboards along the highway showed her brand, and Amma's quiet face had become a symbol of local excellence. Yet beneath the glow of success, another test awaited her. One that would challenge both her trust and her heart. The proposal. It was a bright Friday morning when Amma received a call from Mr. Mensah. Amma, come to the office, he said warmly. We need to discuss a new investment. When she arrived, her father was in a meeting with 2 foreign investors. He introduced her proudly. Gentlemen, this is my daughter, Amma Owusu, the founder of Ajoa Fresh, our newest partner. The men smiled, impressed. We've heard much about you, one of them said. Your product is unique. Amma similet politeli. Thank you. We use only local fruits. Ghana's soil gives the best flavor. After the meeting, Mr. Mensah leaned toward her. Amma, these investors want to expand your brand internationally. Imagine, a Joa Fresh in London and Johannesburg. But it means giving up some control, letting Mensa Estates manage production and distribution. Alma's heart skipped. So I'd lose full ownership? Mr. Mensa hesitated. Technically, yes, but think about the future, Alma. This could make you one of the biggest entrepreneurs in Africa. Alma looked down at her hands. Papa, I started a Joa Fresh with nothing. It's my heart. I can't just hand it away. Mr. Mensa frowned. Sometimes, to grow, you must let go. Ama similet setli. Sometimes, to grow, you must hold on. Seeds of doubt. At home, Alma discussed it with Kojo, who listened quietly. Alma, I trust your instincts, Kojo said. But be careful. Wealthy people often see ownership differently from us. Alma nodded. My father wants to help, I know. But I can't tell if he's thinking like a father or like a businessman. Kojo chuckled. Maybe both. But Alma's nights became restless. Every decision now carried weight. Business, family, pride. She wanted her father's approval, but she feared losing her identity. Meanwhile, rumors began to spread in the business world that Mensa Estates planned to buy out Joa Fresh. Some employees whispered that Alma was just a face, while her father was the real owner. Those rumors pierced her heart like knives. One morning, her assistant Efua rushed into her office. Madam, social media is talking. People say your father owns everything now. Alma's hands tightened on her pen. That's not true. Then you must show them, madam. Efua said gently. Your story inspired people. Don't let anyone rewrite it. Alma nodded. You're right. I built this brand with sweat and tears. No one will erase that. A father's regret. That evening, Alma visited her father. He sat by the garden sipping tea. The sun had begun to set, painting the sky in gold. Papa, she began. I heard the rumors. Are you planning to take full control of Joa Fresh? He looked surprised. No, Amma. But I may have spoken too confidently in interviews. Investors prefer to hear that a bigger company is behind you. I only wanted to protect your brand. Amma frowned. Papa, protection doesn't mean ownership. You taught me strength by throwing me out. Don't take it away now that I've found it. Mr. Mensa sighed deeply. You're right, Amma. I still have much to learn about being a father. Amma touched his shoulder. Then let's learn together. He looked at her, his eyes soft, tired, but full of pride. You're more like your mother than I ever admitted, he said quietly. Strong, stubborn, and full of light. Amma similet faintly. And you, Papa, you're learning to be human again. They both laughed gently, the tension melting into peace. The test of love. One Saturday afternoon, Alma returned home to find Kojo unusually quiet. He sat at the table, staring at a letter. Kojo, what's wrong? He handed her the letter. It was from a construction company. They want to buy my workshop's land, Kojo said. Your father's company is expanding in the area. Alma froze. Mensa Estates? He nodded bitterly. Yes. They're offering a good price, but it means I'll lose my shop. The same shop that built our life. Alma's chest tightened. She rushed to her father's house that evening. Papa, you're demolishing Kojo's workshop? Mr. Mensa looked genuinely confused. I had no idea he was the owner. That's under our Tima expansion project. Alma's voice shook. You said you wanted to make things right. But you're destroying the man who stood by me when you abandoned me. Mr. Mensa stood silently, guilt washing over him. Alma. I didn't know. Then stop it, she said sharply. For once, do the right thing without thinking of profit. He nodded slowly. I will handle it. The decision. Days later, Kojo received a visit from Mr. Mensa himself. The older man arrived humbly, wearing a simple shirt and sandals. No luxury, no pride. Kojo, he said quietly, I came to apologize. Kojo stood in silence, arms folded. I didn't know the land was yours. You are a good man. You took care of my daughter when I could not. If you wish, keep the land. I'll compensate you for any inconvenience. Kojo was stunned. Sir, I don't need your money. I just need peace. Mr. Mensa smiled faintly. Then I'll give you that. That small moment. two men shaking hands in forgiveness, became the bridge that healed the final wound between the families. A family reborn. Months later, Alma organized a community event to celebrate Ajoa Fresh's 4th anniversary. The theme was From Struggle to Strength. Guests from across Accra attended, including media houses, investors, and friends. Alma stood on stage, her daughter Ajoa by her side, holding the microphone. 3 years ago, I had nothing, she said, her voice trembling with emotion. I was a pregnant girl walking away from home. Today, I stand before you as a businesswoman, a mother, and finally, as a daughter forgiven. The audience applauded. Mr. Mensah, sitting in the front row, wiped tears from his eyes. Alma turned toward him and smiled. Everything I am today, I owe to the lessons life taught me, even the painful ones. After the event, the three of them, Alma, Kojo, and Mr. Mensah, stood together for a photo. The old man placed his hand on Kojo's shoulder. You're part of this family now, he said sincerely. Kojo smiled. Thank you, sir. It means more than words. For the first time in many years, Alma looked around and felt whole. The mansion, the business, the fame. None of it mattered compared to what she had regained. Peace, family, and love. The wind that blew across Accra that evening was gentle, carrying the scent of ripe mangoes and ocean salt. The city lights shimmered in the distance as Alma stood by her apartment balcony, watching little Ajoa play with her dolls. Life had finally found its rhythm. Her business, Ajoa Fresh, was now one of the most respected local brands in Ghana. Her face appeared on billboards with the slogan, "From the soil to the soul, taste the strength of home." Every bottle told her story, a story of pain turned to power. But beneath all her success, Alma had one last dream. To rebuild the same community that once sheltered her when she had nowhere to go. The foundation of hope. One morning, Alma visited her father's office with a folder in her hand. He was reviewing estate plans when she walked in. Alma, he smiled. You're early. To what do I owe the pleasure? She placed the folder on his desk. Papa, I want to start something new, a foundation. For young women who were abandoned like I was. A place they can learn, heal, and build businesses. Mr. Mensah looked up, his eyes softening. That's beautiful. What will it be called? Alma Similet Ganti. The Grace Foundation. After my mother, Grace Mensah. The woman who taught me that forgiveness is the highest form of love. Mr. Mensah's throat tightened. Your mother would be proud of you. Then help me make it happen, Alma said. Without hesitation, he nodded. You have my full support. Let's build it together. Kojo's test. While Alma and her father worked on the foundation plans, Kojo faced a quiet storm of his own. His workshop had expanded, and business was booming. Yet deep inside, he sometimes felt overshadowed by Alma's growing fame. One evening, as Alma reviewed project budgets, Kojo sighed. Alma, do you ever miss the simple days? When it was just us and little Ajoa, selling juice under the sun? Alma Similet Karmli. Of course, Kojo. But God didn't bring us this far to go back. We're growing, together. Kojo nodded, but doubt flickered in his eyes. Sometimes I feel like people see me only as your husband now, not Kojo the mechanic. Alma touched his hand gently. Then show them who you are. Start that training center you've always dreamed about, for young boys learning the trade. Kojo looked at her, surprise and gratitude mixing in his gaze. You really believe I can do that? Alma chucklet. Kojo, you believed in me when I was nobody. It's my turn to believe in you. That night, Kojo couldn't sleep. He began sketching plans for what he would call the Kojo Skills Academy, a center for underprivileged youths to learn mechanics and craftsmanship. By morning, his doubt had turned into fire. A reunion of souls. Months later, the Grace Foundation launched with a grand ceremony in Nungwa, the same town where Alma had once lived in a tiny room, fetching water at dawn. The event drew local leaders, journalists, and villagers who remembered her from her struggling days. Alma stood on stage, holding her daughter's hand. Her father sat proudly in the front row, and Kojo stood beside him. 3 years ago, Alma began. I was a broken girl, standing at this same crossroads, hungry, pregnant, and hopeless. But this community gave me kindness when I had nothing. Today, I return not as a beggar, but as a servant of hope. The crowd erupted in applause. Even Mr. Mensah wiped a tear. After the ceremony, a young woman approached Amma, trembling with emotion. "Madam Amma, I'm pregnant and my parents disowned me. I don't know where to go. Please help me." Amma took her hands. "You've come to the right place. I once stood where you are." Behind her, Mr. Mensah watched the exchange quietly. His eyes glistened with pride. For the first time in years, he felt peace wash through him. He whispered to himself, "I once threw away my blessing, but God gave her back to me tenfold." A father's redemption. That night, after the event, Amma and her father sat together in the quiet garden of her new office complex. The moonlight cast a soft glow over their faces. "Amma," Mr. Mensah said slowly, "do you remember the day I threw you out?" "Amma no ditganti. I remember every word, Papa." He sighed. "I thought I was doing what was best. I was proud and blind. I couldn't see the woman you were becoming. I lost your mother to sickness, and I almost lost you to pride." Amma's eyes filled with tears. "You didn't lose me, Papa. You just gave me a harder road. One that taught me strength." He smiled sadly. "You've taught me that love isn't about control but about trust. Thank you for not giving up on me." She took his hand. "We're a family again, Papa. That's what matters." At that moment, little Ajoa ran up to them with a flower in her hand. "Grandpa, this is for you." He laughed, lifting her into his arms. "Thank you, my sunshine." And for the first time in many years, laughter echoed through the Mensah family like a melody of healing. A legacy reborn. Over the following year, the Grace Foundation and the Kojo Skills Academy became beacons of hope. Young women and men from poor communities came to learn, build, and dream again. Amma and Kojo worked side by side, their love deeper than ever. Mr. Mensah often visited, offering wisdom and resources, though he made sure never to control again. During the first anniversary of the foundation, Amma stood before a crowd of hundreds and said, "This is not just my story. It is the story of every woman who refused to let shame define her, every man who chose humility, and every father who found redemption through love." The audience stood to their feet, clapping and cheering. Behind her, Kojo smiled proudly, and her father's heart swelled with joy. Later that night, as the music played and fireworks lit the sky, Mr. Mensah looked at his daughter and whispered to himself, "Grace has truly returned, through Amma, through this family, through love." Epilogue. The full circle. 3 years later, Ajoa Fresh went international. Amma stood at the Heathrow Airport in London, holding her daughter's hand as reporters took photos. Behind her, banners read, "Ajoa Fresh launches in the UK, made in Ghana, loved worldwide." As the cameras flashed, Amma smiled humbly. "We started from a single bucket of fruit juice under the Ghanaian sun. Today, we carry that same sun wherever we go." At that very moment, back in Accra, Mr. Mensah sat on his veranda, watching the news with pride. He whispered to the photo of his late wife, "Grace, our daughter did it. She carried your name and your strength to the world." And as the wind rustled through the palm trees, it was as if Grace herself smiled through the stars. Fire, what a powerful journey. From rejection to redemption. Amma's story shows that forgiveness and faith can rebuild even the most broken hearts. Speech balloon comment below. Would you forgive if you were in Amma's place? Television subscribe and stay tuned for more emotional African stories that touch the soul.